Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films, finishing up our series, our position review. And here with a new person to the program, but somebody I follow on Twitter, interact with. Boss, we do some battling every once in a while, try to get on you a little bit, but that's what family does. So from Baltimore Beatdown, we have Voss with us. Voss, could you please just introduce yourself and tell people where they can find you?
Yes, I am the co-managing editor for Baltimore Beatdown, a part of the SB Nation blog network. You can find me at Vasilis Beatdown is my Twitter handle, Vasilis. I always enjoy the debates and just bringing some new ideas to the table, but encourage everyone to come to our blog, Baltimore Beatdown again. I publish a daily Ravens news article, and we have a lot of content coming. Actually, we're getting ready to begin top 25 Ravens, ranking all the first-round draft picks in Ravens history series beginning later this week.
All right, that sounds interesting. Didn't know that, so I'll be looking forward to that. Top 25. Man, so are we taking into consideration where they were drafted or just the player overall?
This was Kyle Barber's brainchild. Just how much impact they had on the organization. And spoiler alert, Chris McAllister is very underrated by everyone else all of my colleagues except for myself.
Good. Because I just saw before I came here, it's one of those little Twitter things where they're like, who do you think of at cornerback when you see this logo? There was a logo behind me. And the first guy I think of is Chris McAllister, C-Mac. That was my guy. It's sometimes I wonder what his career could have been if he took care of his body a little bit better. But, man, just him and the Hines Ward battles over the years is something that sticks out. And there was no weakness to his game. Chris McAllister came to play when it was time to play, Voss. So I appreciate that.
All-decade team member. He made the all-decade team, which kind of flew under the radar. But I think if it wasn't for maybe some off-the-field stuff, he'd certainly be a Ring of Honor member.
For sure. I didn't know he was all-decade team. That slipped past me as well. So, Voss, we're going to start this program. Originally we were supposed to do this last week, but our timing was just unfortunate because of the passing of Jaylon Ferguson. So at the beginning here, I feel like I'd be remiss if we didn't just talk about, just send our condolences, really. It doesn't matter to me, his on-the-field performance. It doesn't matter to me how he passed. It's just the fact that he passed and left 3 kids under the age of 5 behind, and just an incredibly sad, unfortunate circumstance there. Prayers out to, his significant other and his family in this time.
Certainly a tragedy, 26-year-old young man with 3 young children, just really heartbreaking, and send my condolences as well. May his memory be eternal.
So getting back to the outside linebackers, Voss, 2 guys today that we're going to talk about are enthralled in this starting lineup, and 2 players that we're hoping to get a lot out of, Odafe, Oweh, Tyus Bowser, main players. They would be technically, they're the starters on this team at each outside linebacker spot. I think we should start with Odafe Oweh, though. I think that Voss, on this defense, he is arguably the most important player, because we don't have another player like him. He can move. He's young. He's super talented, athleticism unmatched. He can move from side to side. And he showed a lot of promise in his first year, Voss, especially early in the season.
I am extremely excited to see what he brings to the table in year 2. I think he's the prototypical year 2 breakout player, a gentleman that enters the league with elite tools and has a year to get his feet wet and a full off season. To really see what he can do. Just on a quick side note, I'm personally prescribed to the coverage before pass rush mentality or philosophy, because we are in the ball out quick era and coverage is more autonomous and pass rush can be schemed against, but it's more difficult to scheme against. So I like what the Ravens are doing, building this defense. But Oweh, he can do it all. He can do everything. He can rush the passer with speed. He can rush with power. He can set the edge, and he can even drop into coverage a little bit. So I think he could really be not only the best second-year pass rusher, as we know, he was, I believe, the third or fourth edge rusher selected in that draft class, but a Pro Bowl player and a cornerstone player for the Ravens long term.
Definitely. And, what he brings to the table, and especially what I saw early last year, was very promising as far as the run defense. And that was some skill that he was able to sustain throughout the year. Pass rushing wise, I think he still has work to do. He got off to kind of a quick start. Did you notice, Voss, that, they try to say there's no such thing as a rookie wall, but man, the draft process is just so draining from training to the combine to your workouts. It's like they're constantly pushing their body, and then they get into camp, their head swimming. They're trying to make a name for themselves, unlike a veteran who may be able to pace themselves. Rookies tend to push themselves. So I did notice towards the end of the year, maybe he wore himself out a little bit. And, that's not a bad thing to me. That says more upside for him this year as far as just, hey, he's a pro now and he can take care of his body and train like he wants to in the offseason. Looks like he's in great shape, by the way, from the clips we saw.
Oh, absolutely. He's the specimen. I did notice that, especially in terms of splash plays and the forced fumbles, they did seem to kind of come earlier in the year. I do think it's notable he had a 65% snap share last season, which is a high number for a rookie and very high number for an edge rusher in the Ravens scheme. They usually they have maybe one anchor who plays about 80%, and then they have three or four other guys that rotate in for about 50%, going back to Suggs and Judon and Zadarius Smith. So I think it's certainly possible that he was wore down towards the end of the year, a longer season, and a very heavy workload.
And Voss, one of the reasons I'm so excited about Oweh is that he's such an important piece to this defense. I mentioned that I think he, is arguably the most important player on this defense. I expect him to play Voss 70% of the snaps this year. I really do, because you look at the top end of the group, and I love it with Oweh and Bowser, and eventually we'll see what Ajabo can do. But after that, for the Ravens, it's a position that we're lacking depth overall and some high-end talent. So you're talking about, yes, the Ravens love to rotate their defensive front, love to rotate their outside linebackers. But this year, it's going to be hard to obtain a pass rushing stud. We missed out on Zadarius Smith. That would have been great to pair with him. So with all that being said, Voss, am I wrong, or do you disagree with me to think that Oweh could be up around that 70% mark if he's healthy all year?
I think that's very possible, very probable, especially if the offense can go back to being more of a ball control offense, where the defense in general is playing less snaps in the game. And I do think there's probably one more addition coming at outside backer. They did stick the unrestricted free agent tender, seldom used, on Justin Houston. They also kicked the tires on JPP, Pierre Paul. So I think there's probably one more coming. But again, with the other two, both Bowser and Ojabo coming back from Achilles, I can certainly see Oweh managing a very heavy workload, especially through the month of September.
So what would you like to see from Odafe Oweh this year? Do you have any kind of preference as far as, do you want to kind of stick him on the rush end? Do you want to stick him in that Sam role? Do you want to mix it up like we normally do? Do you want to let him just go after the passer? Would you like them to be moved around more in just a matchup-based player? Just your overall, what would be your preference if you're coaching this defense and you say, okay, I want to start with one of my best players, Odafe Oweh. How are we going to maximize him and use him? What would be your preference, Vaz? Because I could see it going a couple of different ways here.
So I'm a fan of specialization with younger players. Allow them to master one facet of the game or one position before you start bringing in the versatility. So I would like to see him parked at rush end and allow him to continue refining his pass rushing moves, his hand technique in particular, because he has all the potential in the world with the speed he has to threaten the tackle. He can really wreak some havoc. He can certainly do different things, and just because he's rush end doesn't mean he can't drop into coverage. But I think they're actually, depending on Bowser, who we're going to get to next, but I think they actually have a couple options at Sam. And I'm actually, Dalen Hayes is the topic, but I think he's ready to take some snaps and fill that role.
Me too. Marshall and I talked about that on the first show about Dalen Hayes being kind of a Bowser clone and having that, security blanket over there, someone who can drop really fluidly and be kind of a power rusher. So I'm with you there. I would say as far as what I would like to see from Odafe Oweh, we know he can stop the run. We know he has all the physical ability to be able to drop if we needed him to drop. But what I would like to see is I would like to add to your statement too, that first step. It's still something I think that it improved from what we saw at Penn State to last year, but just anticipating that snap, having your head looking towards the ball and just getting off as fast as you can, that will maximize his speed and really put the left tackles that he's going to be facing on skates. Like I said, I think it was a knock on him coming out. I think that he was a little bit better at it last year than he was in college, but I still think that he has some room to grow in that area, along with developing more pass rush moves.
Yes, definitely agree with that. But it's a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year development plan. And I thought it was very interesting that Eric Acosta made that selection because that was a traits over production at outside linebacker. And that has not typically been what the Ravens look for. And I think they made an adjustment there. And I think it was a very smart adjustment because to have that high ceiling at a premium position where it's very hard to find players like that, I could not be more excited to see. I think he really does have the potential to be one of the premier TJ Watt, Myles Garrett pass rushers in the entire NFL. Maybe not year 2, but certainly by year 3.
Now, see, Vas, this is what I love about like following you on Twitter and discussing because you're talking about bigger picture stuff, which I love. And with Odafe Oweh, part of me says, okay, they did value production. Going back to this draft, and then look what happened with Patrick Queen in 2020. They valued the traits over the production in that area too, and it wasn't going great. And they still saw Odafe Oweh there and said, man, this guy is just such a physical beast. Let's get him in here with our coaching and have faith in ourselves to be able to develop him. We love his attitude. I think his attitude just, I don't know, he kind of rubs me the right way every time I hear him talk. Like, this guy's motivated. He's got a good head on his shoulders, solid person. Like, he does seem like the type of player I would say that will develop more and more. So I love the fact that you're saying, big step this year, but really his ceiling is much past, like year 3, year 4. This could be a home run pick for the Ravens.
No question, no question. Notably, or at least I'd like to mention, are you sure you're familiar with the relative athletic score, which is basically a combination of your size, your speed, your agility, everything combined into one raw number. So the best is a 10. Odafe Oweh is 9.92. Tyus Bowser, 9.74. And Ojabo, 9.39. I would be shocked if any team in the league has 3 freakier edge rushers, and it's going to take a little time, I think, for all of them to get on the field. But when they do, it's going to be something fierce.
So Voss, Tyus Bowser, let's move on to him. I think a lot of people would be surprised by that RAS score because, he doesn't stick out as Odafe Oweh is just, I mean, what did he run a 4.3? Was he 4.39, 4.37, something crazy like that? Yeah, I mean, but Bowser doesn't stick out to you on tape as exactly an athlete. He is, though, an incredible athlete, especially when you consider things that don't show up on a raw score, like your just overall agility, your body bend, your flexibility. I mean, he can turn himself into a brick wall when he needs to, and he can reach up and contort his body and deflect a pass when he needs to. It's just an overall great athlete. I don't see any kind of athletic limitations for Tyus Bowser, but of course, the big story, Voss, I guess what we should touch on first. His injured Achilles in that final game against the Steelers. Do you have any kind of expectations as far as what can we expect Tyus Bowser to be early in the season and then later in the season?
Sure. Real quick, just back to his athleticism. I had a press pass at training camp before the 2019 season, got to see the team up close and personal. And in my view, from that period of time, he was the best pound-for-pound athlete on the team, Tyus Bowser.
Wow, okay.
I mean, he was making pick sixes, and he has, just the way he hits the bags and everything. But as far as his Achilles tear, apparently there have been some advances in the way that they repair that injury, and they've changed the way they do surgery, which has allowed some players to come back sooner than later. Justice Hill tore his Achilles. He was back at minicamp after 10 months. And we all remember Terrell Suggs tore his Achilles, I believe it was the week before the NFL draft, and he returned to the field in 5 months. And I've also noticed, this is probably anecdotal, but the really freaky athletes, the Adrian Petersons, guys that are they just seem to be able to heal faster. So as far as expectations, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to put that on him, but I think he should be probably back sometime in September, whether it's week 1 or week 4. It depends how the rehab goes, but I don't think he's going to miss a ton of time. At least I'm optimistic that he's not.
I'm optimistic as well, and there are a couple of things. And I was actually Sarah Ellison. I saw her say this a couple of days ago, and I'm like, Sarah, I said that. I'm glad to see Sarah, agreeing with me. But a couple of things. Number one, the way the Ravens haven't attacked this position through free agency and just being kind of complacent after missed out on Za'Darius kind of tells me that they're kind of comfortable with Bowser. That and the fact that they drafted another guy with an Achilles injury in David Ajabo. It kind of seems like the Ravens are depending on him or getting good early reports from his injury. If the reports weren't good, I feel like there would be more sense of urgency either through the draft or in free agency to bring in a true player opposite Odafe Oweh. So I that gives me hope. And then also something Sarah said that I noticed as well. There was a clip, Voss, you probably don't remember it, but it was basically Bowser coming into the building and either his hand slipped off the door or somebody got in his way and he just hopped back real quick and hopped up. And I'm like, wait a minute, he didn't think about that at all. He's just moving around. I feel like he could get on the dance floor and cut it up right now. And of course, this is reading way too much into it, which is what we love to do. But yes, he looked pretty darn good, walking in with a little strut in his step and some real animated in his body, he looked ready to go. So obviously we're not doctors, we don't have any information. You mentioned all that great information. Cam Akers came back really fast last year for the LA Rams in their Super Bowl victory. So yes, the medical advances, man, science never ceases to amaze, Voss. It gets better and better.
Yes, and we don't know if it's a partial tear or full tear. A lot of different variables there, but I'm cautiously optimistic that he will be back sooner rather than later, and they're going to need him. He took a 77% snap share last season, which is a very high number for an outside backer. Career high 7 sacks, broke out with that, and obviously the real advantage to having him on the field is his versatility and ability to drop into zone coverage and even play a little bit of man coverage. He was a sandbacker in a even man front at Houston in college. So if they really want to get creative, McDonald really wants to get creative, they could do 4 outside linebackers on the field at once and have him play off ball occasionally. But one of the best coverage backers in the entire league, I would say.
Yes, I don't watch other teams and study them like the Ravens, but if you're asking me, Tyus Bowser is the best I've ever seen in a Ravens uniform. And when I watch the other teams week to week and study them coming in to play the Ravens, I don't see anybody with that kind of coverage ability. Yeah, Vass, I was actually talking about this morning. If a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul is added to the team, and all of a sudden we have JPP, tall, long player, Calais Campbell, Brent Urban, Broderick Washington is another 5 tech. All of a sudden, Voss, we don't have just 1, 3, 4 defensive end. We have a bunch of them, and to me, that would signal that we could play more of a 4-3 and put those 2 of those guys on the end and have Tyus Bowser in that old Peter Boulware role. If you remember the 2000 defense, where sometimes he would be lined up in a 5-man front, other times he'd be off-ball linebacker. I could see Bowser playing a role like that if the Ravens were to bring in somebody like JPP instead of Justin Houston. Did you have any thoughts on that? It's kind of a tangent off subject here.
I actually prefer Houston. I really liked what he brought to the table last season. I thought he had consistent pressure, even though the sack numbers were not there. And I think he's a little bit more of a outside linebacker versus defensive end. But I understand what you're saying, certainly, about playing more four-man front. I actually like the dime defense. That's my favorite package. It's been for a very long time. I think they get the majority of their takeaways and sacks always, and it's just the best way to match up. Of course, the offense needs to cooperate and put some points on the board to allow them to get to there. But I do think, Oweh has the size to play, strong side defensive end, or I think they'd be fine, and they can run all kind of different games and twists and stunts up front with these guys, and they're very, very deep on the defensive line. I'm excited. This is the best defensive line group they've had in a long time. I think that's really going to benefit all of the outside backers. They're stronger up the middle, not only on the defensive line. They have several guys now who can penetrate and collapse the pocket, and also safety play should be much improved to take away those quick outlet passes that were preventing the outside backers from getting home that last split second where they couldn't quite get that sack.
Yes, the safety group should really help this pass rush and the outside linebackers we're talking about today. And as far as the dime defense, Vass, I mean, I'm with you 100%, and I'm feeling like it's now or never, brother. It's now or never. I mean, even when other teams play two tight ends, 12 formation, those at home, I don't feel like if having Kyle Hamilton and Chuck Clark on the field instead of a second linebacker is going to hurt us at all if the other team wants to run the ball. I mean, you want to run the ball, the difference between having Kyle Hamilton on the field, say, and another linebacker, there's marginal difference in the run defense, if any. And then your pass defense, I mean, newsflash, Voss, they're allowed to pass on 1st and 10 too. They're allowed to pass in 12 formation. You'll be in a much better spot. So yes, philosophically, Voss and I are right on with that. Dime defense, I think, will help the pass rush if we're able to play lighter than the other team's formation indicates. And we're able to, not have to bring in an extra linebacker, have to bring in an extra defensive lineman, any kind of big guy that you want to have there, and be able to lean on our safeties as a bigger secondary. I think that we're going to hold up fine against the run and really help those outside linebackers we're talking about today get home. You'll see Justin Houston and Odafe get just a little bit more time.
Yes, I think what you gain with an extra safety versus a linebacker, what you gain in pass defense is worth what you lose in run defense. If you lose anything at all, I mean, Hamilton and Clark are pretty decent sized safeties. I mean, and Queen's not the biggest linebacker either. But I really do. I've been begging and, going back to 2014, Ozzie Newsome's been saying when they used to do the State of the Ravens press conference, he was the general manager, we want to find a free safety with range. They really didn't for almost a decade. I guess you could maybe say Eric Weddle's first season, he still had a little bit of range. Earl Thomas didn't quite have the range that I thought he was going to have when they brought him in, and now they have two. So, just taking away the coverage in the middle of the field has been a really weak spot. You can go and look at production from tight ends against the Ravens, and they've been among the worst in the league every year except for 19. I think Thomas helped them out a little bit in 19. Under Wink, it was just kind of a vulnerability of his defense. So taking away that hot read, that outlet, I think they're going to rack up a lot of sack totals. But more than that, I do kind of agree with Wink that raw sack numbers are a little bit overrated. QB hits and hurries are really and the rest comes with it. And a lot of times the sacks just come in bunches. It's just the nature of the game.
It really does. And the speed rushers are kind of being taken out of the game a little bit because it takes a longer time to get around a tackle and get home when the ball's coming out so quick. I've gained a better appreciation for some of these guys who can just be disruptive, bull rush, swim, get in the passing lane, get your arm up. Know the game. If it's trips formation and, they got three receivers over there and they like to throw a quick screen pass, don't give me your 7-step drop pass rush move. Let's just get you in the lane and get your hands up. So, I love the way that this defense is seemingly like just stacked with different pieces. We're talking about the secondary with Ken. Tomorrow we talked about it with Knox. Just, we have slot corners, we have big corners, we have big safeties, we have free safeties, we have strong safeties, we have big guys up front, we have pass rushers out up front, versatile pieces. They each can play a role. So a guy that was brought in recently, Vince Biegel, Just want to read off some notes here, Voss, and let you take it.
Mhm.
He's another classic 3-4 type outside linebacker, maybe inside linebacker hybrid, kind of in the vein to me of a Bowser or a Hayes, but he's just not that kind of athlete. 6'3", 246. Still a young player, just turned 28. He was drafted in 2017. This is already his fourth team, Voss. 2.5 sacks in 10 starts in 2019 was really his only extensive action in the NFL. He was with the Dolphins at that time. I think as a football player, Voss, when I was watching a couple of games of him, I like his play recognition. I like his eyes. I think that he'll be okay against the run. I think that his pass rush, just as overall as an athlete, is something I think that leaves something to be desired. And as far as his future with the Ravens, I'll give you a bunch of things you can take on any direction. But, a player that may be able to impress and stick around on the practice squad, I think is where this addition is heading here with Vince Biegel.
So basically, he's your prototypical or standard kind of steady backup, core special teamer kind of player, high football character, and I agree with you. He is play recognition. He's a heady player. Not great, just a below average athlete. Although he did have a 76th percentile 3-cone, which I was a little bit surprised by. Not your guy that's going to drop into coverage seamlessly. Not going to necessarily threaten the edge, and not necessarily strong enough either to set the edge against the run. I actually think if the season started today, he would make the team to give them that depth there. But if there is a Houston or a JPP or even a Trey Flowers, or maybe even Jeremiah Moon, the UDFA out of Florida, who I think has some upside, they could beat him out. So he came out of Wisconsin. We know the Ravens have the ties to Wisconsin with Jimmy Leonard. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think he's kind of one of those players that raises the floor of the team and gives you some insurance and some depth. Not a guy that you want starting. Not necessarily even a guy that you want on the 53, but he's probably a pretty good 55th, 56th, 57th man.
Agreed. So it like I said, lack of depth here as far as quality depth, but we do have depth, and Jeremiah Moon is someone we talked about extensively on the first show. I love his upside, Voss. And we're doing great on time here. So I wanted to ask you about Moon. Obviously, man, reading his story was something else because he had that issue where he was bow-legged, pigeon-toed, and I believe he fractured something in his back because of it and had to wear braces on his legs. And he's battled all this injury, man. But when you look at his length and his explosion, I believe I don't have all my notes here on him, but like over 40-inch vert, just a tremendous athlete. The Ravens may have something in him if they can somehow just preserve him, use him sporadically and just to come on and change the passer. Like if it came between keeping a guy like Jeremiah Moon or Vince Biegel, like I like Moon in this just because of the just sheer upside in that position.
I mean, to me, it depends if Bowser's ready. I don't think you want Moon, as a primary backup to Hayes week one, because that would be a little tough as far as from an experience standpoint. But yes, interesting player, intriguing player. He was converted to inside to outside at Florida. So, he has the athleticism. And notably, the Ravens, out of all the premium positions, there's 5 premium positions, right? Wide receiver, quarterback, offensive tackle, pass rusher, and corner. The only one that they've consistently developed late round players, coming back to Adelius Thomas, Adarius Smith, and Judon, is the pass rush. So that's something that I feel more comfortable and confident that they are able to do. Of course, and everything changes with the coaching staff, but that's what history has shown us, that's one place. It's hard to find those diamonds in the rough at those positions because all of the teams are searching for those positions and pushing guys up the board because they're so expensive when they hit free agency. So that would be a place where I would trust them to maybe find that diamond in the rough.
And not only that, Vas, it takes a heck of an athletic profile to play some of those positions. I mean, they're rare.
Oh, yeah.
Not only does everybody want them, but you can be a below average athlete at other spots and still be a great player, or an average athlete and still be a great player. Good luck being an average athlete at left tackle and in being an all-star there. It's just so tough. But yes, outside linebackers, Ravens have developed, and I think that part of the success there is the rotational aspect about using them to their strengths, keeping them fresh, asking them to specialize in what they do well. This is what we want you to do. But yeah, I agree with you. If Bowser is not healthy and you want somebody to kind of play on that weak side and drop, then Biegel would be a guy that gives you good insurance for that, especially since you don't really know what you have in Dalen Hayes, even though he looks very promising. Moon is a guy, Voss, that I like on that rush side to use his length and get his arms up again in the passing lane and to be disruptive, with that weak side receiver over there and just be a disruptive force. But I like Jeremiah Moon. So Voss, we have done really well. Final thoughts on this outside linebacker group. You can take it wherever you would like. But if you'd like to include, Ajabo and the guys we didn't talk about tonight, could you please just talk about this group as a whole, how important it is to the Ravens, what your expectations are? Take it away and bring us home, sir.
Yes, I'm very excited about this group. I think they have the world of potential with, again, there's three very rare athletes. There's just not very many people in the world that have the ability of Oweh, Ajabo, and Bowser, just the raw physical gifts. And I think they maybe have some more options as far as depth than given credit for. Malik Harrison can cross-train a little bit, and he can probably play some Sam if you're really in a pinch. But they have some pretty good versatility to really match up against any team, whether you're playing Cleveland with 22 personnel one week and then you're playing Cincy with 10 personnel the next week. The defense has so many different versatile chess pieces. Overall, I think a lot of folks are saying pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. Where they've been wanting it for years and years and years, and they want the top guy in the league. And I think it's a very smart strategy that the way that Eric DeCosta has built the defense from the back to the front. Tyus Bowser was identified today actually as the best contract on the team at $5.5 million a year, and then you have a first-round pick in Oweh, second-round pick in Ajabo, who can all just dominate, in a given game for very low cost. So I'm very excited to see what this group brings this season, and I think they will have the pass rush necessary to make a very deep run in the playoffs if the offense puts them in position to do so.
Very good. See, now I actually feel better about the outside linebacker group after speaking with you. Sometimes, Voss, it doesn't go that way. You know what I mean? You're talking to someone, and you're like, man, he's right. I was a little high on him, but I feel like in this show, you're a little bit higher on them than me, which makes me feel great because you know what? You're right. Like if they're healthy, that I guess that's pretty much, where my, I don't know, uncertainty comes from, or maybe it's keep holding me back, my excitement back. But Ajabo and Bowser, we don't know. We just don't know. So, But yes, healthy Oweh, healthy Bowser, healthy Ajabo. You're talking about guys that can affect the games in different ways, and especially Odafe Oweh, who can, and Tyus Bowser can have proven they can do it in multiple ways at the NFL level already. I mean, Oweh's run defense, from the start, I'm like, okay, this is going to give this kid a chance to be on the field in a Ravens team that doesn't mess around with run defense and just allow his physical skills to take over. And, he seems to be very coachable because with Oweh, Voss, I just saw the difference between 2019 and 2020. I went back and, trying to study him as a prospect and be like, all right, well, I see a raw guy, but what did he look like last year? Man, in 2019, Vass, I believe it was, he was just basically running into people with his shoulder. Like you could tell he had just been playing football for a couple of years. So, yeah, he didn't look real polished in 2020. But when you took and compared that to what he looked like in 2019, I'm like, all right, this guy already took a step and then took another step last year. So, yeah, I'm really excited about Odafe Oweh this year, Vass. That's my guy right now.
They seem, yeah, me too. If I had to buy one jersey, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that would be the one for sure. They seem, at least Bowser in a way, seem to have a knack for making the big play at the dramatic moment, what fourth quarter plays. And, I don't know if that's just an innate thing or just random, but it's always forcing a fumble late in the fourth quarter so you can beat the Chiefs. It's Bowser making a pick six in the fourth quarter in a game you need to make the playoffs in 2020, that sort of thing. So, that's what they need, really. The defense, more than anything, they have to get the takeaway numbers up, and they could be the best defense or top 3 defense in the league. I think they do have that caliber of personnel.
It would be really nice to be able to win a big game on defense when the offense just doesn't have it. I mean, you can do all the pre-planning, that you want, but sometimes Lamar's going to have a bad game. Maybe you have a drop, maybe you have a turnover, and you need your defense to step up. And of course, it's a team effort. But when I say win a game on defense, I think most people know what I'm talking about there. The Ravens have that ability for sure. But yeah, great thoughts from Vas. If you're not following him on Twitter, do so. I'll have his links. Your Baltimore Beatdown articles, daily articles, like you said. Was it weekdays? It's Monday through Friday, right?
Monday through Friday, just Ravens news and the date, and I gather from different sources to get some new opinions and new places to begin discussion.
Yeah, it's a great daily habit to get into, just to click on Vaz's stuff every day and just basically gives you a rundown of what happened either over the weekend or the day before. Catch up different articles from different people that Vaz has on there, and a nice short, like, it's very consumable. Vaz, I like it. It's very consumable. It's not a big old article you have to stroll through. It's like, hey, you interested in this? Here it is. You're interested in that? Here it is. So if you haven't checked out Vaz's work, go ahead and do so. And is it Vasilis?
Vasilis. Yep.
See, you got it. Go, bro. Vasilis. See, I got a little skills, but I was in customer service for a while, Mr. Vasilis. So I have, experience with talking to people from all over the country and different parts of the world who speak English. I'm just English only over here. But yeah, Vasilis, that was my guess, bro. I broke it out on live here, man. You got to be impressed with that.
You nailed it. You nailed it. You must have been watching the Tampa Bay hockey game, because their goalie, I think, is like the Russian version. Vasilevsky, I think his name is.
Yeah, I really wasn't tuned into that. I have to be honest with you. No, I do watch some. I like game sevens. So if it's NBA or hockey or whatever, I like game sevens, even if it's like the first round of the playoffs. I just love that urgency. But mostly I'm just a football and a baseball guy, man. I'm pretty basic. College basketball, Terps fan. I'm excited that we have a new head coach there. So yes, I kind of fell off with the Terps the last handful of years.
You and me both. Long overdue. I actually went to high school with Juan Dixon.
No kidding.
He was a senior my freshman year in high school. Yep.
You see, that's my guys. Lonnie Baxter. I'm a big Lonnie Baxter guy over here. I got to see X-Ray Hip, meet him actually a couple of times, and they had that Midnight Madness when I went to College Park, which was just such a waste. Quick story at the end here. You all stand in line, and then the doors open, and everybody burst for the door. So, and I was with my future wife, my girlfriend at the time. So, I was like protecting her and trying to hurry up. It was open seats, chaos at College Park. But yes, they had that open practice that I'll never forget that I went to when I went there. It was pretty cool. So with that, I would just like to say thank you to our football family. Love my football family. Thanks for Vas for coming over, bro. I hope to have you on the program either this season, talking about the draft or whatever. We got to get together more often, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed this.
I love it. So with that, Vas, please say goodnight. Say goodbye to people for me.
All right. Take care. Football's family. Take care, everybody.